What is going on, Dolphins fans? It is Jacob here, Miami Dolphins Syndicate. Yesterday, we talked about Brandon Staley as the potential new Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator, but today we're going to talk about who my pick would be to be defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins, and that is Mike Vrabel, obviously previously of the Tennessee Titans. And when you look at his tenure with the Tennessee Titans, I'd say it was quite successful. Obviously, it didn't end with any Super Bowls, but they made that deep run, making it all the way to the AFC Championship game, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. They had a few other playoff runs, and I'd say overall, he did a really good job with that team considering what he was going against, and that was the team constantly being stripped of assets. Obviously, trading away A.J. Brown is a massive loss. When he took over, they had one of the better offensive lines in the league, and by the time he left, it was one of the worst offensive lines in the league. But one thing that was a mainstay of his Tennessee Titans teams is that defense always produced, even when there were some not necessarily recognizable names out there outside of Jeffrey Simmons. It was constantly, at the very least, teetering around a top 10 defense. And considering, again, he was fighting an uphill battle every single year, it was what it felt like. I think he's the perfect guy for a multitude of reasons. And starting off, obviously, with that success, outside of the last two seasons, and those two seasons were the ones without A.J. Brown and with the aging Derrick Henry, you lose Taylor Lewan, you lose some key figures of that locker room, as well as Ryan Tannehill's performance going down. And the last 2 years, you see 7 and 6 wins. Other than that, he had a winning record as a head coach all 4 years. And something that impressed me with the Tennessee Titans and what I didn't like about the Los Angeles Chargers when Brandon Staley was in charge is that while he was clearly a defensive coach, it didn't really seem to matter. The offense had an identity and the offense flowed well, which tells me that he had a really good grip over the team, over his players. He had a hand on the pulse of everything that was going on around the team. So he was able to manage and he was able to run a team effectively as a defensive guy, be able to control the entirety of the roster. If you're going to give him solely the responsibility of running the defense, and a defense that is very talented, it's going to go into the season a little beat up. Obviously, losing our two edge rushers and starting off the season without them is going to be a massive loss. But what he did with sometimes lesser talent was, to me, really impressive. As just an X's and O's and as a results business, he got the job done. He didn't quite win the Super Bowl, but when you're head coach of the Tennessee Titans, you're constantly facing an uphill battle, as well as you're not going to be getting the glamorous superstars that could potentially move there in free agency. You're going to have to overpay to get guys to come in because Tennessee Titans just historically have not been a very successful and fruitful team. You're not going to have guys coming in taking a little bit less money to come play for the Tennessee Titans like right now the Kansas City Chiefs would or the San Francisco 49ers would, a team that is respectable and noteworthy, that that if everything goes right, you could very well be hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. Tennessee doesn't get that privilege, and Mike Vrabel, in charge, won a lot of games. I think it was very unjust that he ended up getting fired at the end of the season. He was the last of the problems, but I understand that a team just wants to fully hit that reset button, start over fresh, and that's what they obviously elected to do. They beat us in one of their last wins of the season because they won the last game of the season, beating the Jacksonville Jaguars, eliminating them from the playoffs. Another thing that we saw with Brandon Staley was the team gave up, well, a meaningless game in which the only thing that you gain from winning is eliminating your division rival from the playoffs. They were able to do that, and you didn't see anybody's performance drop. You actually saw the performance elevate at the end of the season when they knew the season was over, when Derrick Henry already knew that he was leaving, when they were switching over to Will Levis from Ryan Tannehill despite Tannehill coming back from injury, when there was just so much reason for especially veterans on this team to give up and not play as hard as they could. This team fought, this team won games, and they ended up only finishing at 6 wins, but it was respectable. They walked away at the end of the season feeling pretty good about themselves. So I love everything that we get from Vrabel, and arguably most importantly is his likability. That Tennessee locker room seemed like they really enjoyed and really cared for each other. The Bussin' with the Boys podcast was one of the very first, I think, player-run podcasts while a player involved was still actively on the team and still actively playing football. That is Taylor Lewan. While he was still with Tennessee Titans, was able to do that. And Mike Vrabel empowered him to go out and be himself and go out and have his voice and market based off of what he's good at. And they're clearly really good at running that show. So somebody who is coming from the Belichick tree, previously, I don't think he actually ever coached for the Patriots, but he was with the Patriots for so long that is just such an easy connection to make. You wouldn't really associate player empowerment and letting players use their voice as something to be with a guy who was once with the New England Patriots, but that's what Vrabel was. There was nothing but good things that I've heard at the very least said about him from current or former players that have played underneath him. So that was a big issue with the Miami Dolphins this season, was the defense wasn't quite in tune with their defensive play caller and Vic Fangio. I mean, we saw the video at the end of the season when it was announced that he was going to be leaving the team, where Javon Holland literally posted a video of him kicking rocks, which we can all assume that is him telling Vic Fangio to kick rocks. That's not the case with anybody that I've ever seen that come out and talk about their experience for playing under Mike Vrabel. He's a former player, and former players, you see the comfortability in which they talk and interact with other former players. There's a respect level there that you get when you're a former player versus when you're just a really smart guy like the Dolphins have with Mike McDaniel. That yin and yang will be, I think, absolutely perfect to have the brilliant genius offensive play caller that Mike McDaniel appears to be, and then you have the former player who is just an absolute physical specimen, 6'4", still probably around the 250-pound mark, somewhere in there, former player, got it done, had a successful career with the New England Patriots, and then had a very successful tenure as head coach. I don't think he deserves to be a defense coordinator. I think he deserves to be a head coach, but just how the coaching things are sorting itself out. We just saw that the Seattle Seahawks hired their new head coach, Mike Macdonald, from the Baltimore Ravens. That leaves just the Washington Commanders, and they just let go of Ron Rivera, a hard-nosed defensive guy. I don't think they're going to bring in another hard-nosed defensive guy with Mike Vrabel, so he should still be available. That now it just comes down to, would he want to take a step back and be a defensive coordinator for a year or two and wait for that market to open up? If he is open to it, he has to be the number one option for the Miami Dolphins to go out there and target. You get everything you want in a defensive coordinator from Mike Vrabel. Success as a head coach, success as a player, likability, relatability. You find everything in Mike Vrabel. He is the perfect guy. For me, it's him, number one, and then a bunch of other guys like Leslie Frazier and a few other hosts of names in a bunch that we'll still continue to talk about. But Mike Vrabel is undoubtedly my number one pick for defense coordinator of the Miami Dolphins. Do you share the same opinion? Do you think it's Mike Vrabel or essentially bust when it comes to the defensive coordinator position? Let us know down below in the comments what you think of Vrabel, what you think of his tenure with the Tennessee Titans, and what you think that he could potentially do with this pretty well-loaded Miami Dolphins defense. We'll see whether we have all of the pieces or a majority of the pieces return. As we know, guys like Andrew Van Ginkel are going to be a free agent. Christian Wilkins, what's going to happen with him? Is he going to sign an extension? Are they going to franchise tag him again? What's going to happen? Those questions are yet to be answered, but you want the best play caller available to be there at the defensive coordinator position. I think that's Mike Vrabel. Again, let us know what you think down below in the comments. While down there, if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. We thank you all very much for watching today. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody.